Opportunity to take a call on the unit titles bill. I have to agree, Chair, with our spokesperson on housing, Moana Maki, and our other speakers on the opposition, that there is a bit of concern, and it's been laid on the table, with regard to the last-minute introduction of the government supplementary order paper. I appreciate the fact that the Minister, the Honourable Maurice Williamson, has given Moana the opportunity to meet with his officials, and I appreciate also that he's had to recently take over the portfolio from a former colleague, from a former minister, for reasons that are publicly known. But the fact remains, sir, that when you consider the supplementary order paper tabled by the government today, and I understand it was ready 9 days ago, that there are 13 pages of this amendment, and Mr. Chair, you've already heard from other speakers that this is a very technical bill, and I have to say, quickly going through it, you have to wonder that the people that made submission to this bill, who had genuine concerns about the way that we were bringing into modernising the bill from when it was in 1972, will they now have the opportunity to be able to make comments on what is being amended by the government? I look at the page 2 of the amendment, and in clause 7b there is, and it reads, subclause 5, it reads, to omit this subclause, lines 33 to 35 on page 28, and substitute the following subclause 5, if the body corporate requests in writing, the authority undertaking the public works must at its own expense prepare the new unit plan or amendment to a unit plan as the case may be. Now, just on the face of that, Mr. Chair, I'm asking myself, what does that mean? Is that referring to local territorial authorities? Does it cover all local territorial authorities? What about the case of Auckland that is now going to be a super city in the next few months? Should that not be spelt out in that particular clause? Is it the local authority that it says should be paying for the public works, or is it the body corporate? And that's sort of the question that needs to be raised. You look at page 5 of the amendment, and I know the Minister said that they were very technical, but it's for that reason that people, it's particularly myself, are quite nervous about the substance of those particular amendments, because there are significant wordings in the series of amendments on both page 5 and page 6, and later on in the amendment. And the reason why I raise that, Chair, is because you consider this was a major review which began in 2003, undertaken by the Labour Party, and after that particular review, it was introduced into this House by the Honourable Shane Jones of May 2008, and we acknowledge that is there's been significant work undertaken simply because you needed to ensure that we were going to do things right. And the nervousness that myself and the representative from Auckland will have over this is there's been a lot of rushing in legislation in recent times, particularly when you have to do with the super city in Auckland. A lot of rushing, and we know, it has been our experience in our electorate, that whenever governments of this nature rush through these things, there are bound to be mistakes. And who ends up paying for those mistakes, Mr. Chair? It is the public. And I have to say that that is of concern at this particular time. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, why it is difficult for that side of the House to acknowledge the fact that there has been significant work undertaken by a Labour minister, by a Labour government. And so I just want to be able to put that on the table. It's okay for the government to take credit for this. We're supporting the bill. But it needs to be also acknowledged that there have been significant work undertaken by some people here in the Labour opposition. I want to simply just finish off, Speaker.
Sewell Williams, CO. The question. You have the call if you wish to make some.
I just want to finish off, Mr. Speaker, to also highlight that again on pages 10, 12 and 13, 10 and 12, again, some of those amendments are of significant wording, and the way that the government introduced this particular supplementary order paper today at the last minute before the debate does not do well for the spirit of cooperation. Thank you.
The question is that Part 1 stand part, but before we do, we have the Minister's Amendment. The question is that the Minister's Amendment set out on SOP 112 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. The contrary will say no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 1 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. Part 1 will stand part. The question now is that Part 2, debate on clauses 8 to 141, stand part. David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.